Beautiful Jellyfish, it's Tracy. I had full intentions of wearing a nice presentable shirt, but instead I'm wearing my pajamas still, and I'm, it's my day off, my only day off this week. I only have one day off, so I'm being real lazy today, and that's what I'm doing. But today I want to do a video, which is another modern study. This is my second one. I've done my first one, which I will list in the description bar below if you want to check it out. But this one today is talking about piloting a control deck, and someone had actually recommended the opposite, which was like playing around a control deck, like how to be in that seat, which I do want to do that video, but I have to think more about what I want to talk about. I have like an entire list about how to pilot a control deck in Modern, just because I've done that before and I have experience with that. And I haven't really been on the opposite end where I've played against control decks before, so I have to like really think about what I want to say in that video. But that will be coming at some point. Hold up, there's a speck on the lens. There we go. Okay, so let's talk about how to pilot a control deck in Modern. The first thing is, Modern decks are extraordinarily hard to goldfish. And I did an entire video talking about how goldfishing is really important. And what I mean by that is you have your, your deck, you shuffle it, and you draw your 7 cards, and then you play the deck out as if you're playing against someone. But it's really hard to do that with a control setting because you're reacting to what your opponent's doing. So if you have a lightning bolt in your hand, you're like, bolt their creature. What if they don't have a creature? You're bolting them. What if you need to bolt their creature? Like, it's a very hard thing to goldfish. Goldfishing is really good in that case if you want to goldfish for your control deck, which you should still do, not for that purposes of what I said, but to see how your mana base is working out for you, see how your colors are working out, see how your draws go, see how shuffling goes with your fetch lands, etc., etc. But goldfishing to try to actually play it out and like bolt thing, it's really hard to do that. It's really hard to see what you're going to counter, like what you're going to snap plus bolt, whatever. Just don't goldfish in that with that mindset. Goldfish for other purposes like balancing out your mana base and that whole stuff and that jam. So that's the first thing. The second thing is to take your time. The thing is that you'll notice a lot of times with control players is because they're reacting frequently to stuff is they'll, your opponent plays something and you're like, hold up. You're like, give me a second, because you don't know, are you going to counter that? Are you going to path it the next turn? What exactly are you going to do with this? Because sometimes you have the issue where you have too many removal cards in your hand and you want to know exactly how to remove your thing. So say, for example, you have a lightning bolt and a path to exile. You're like, should I path their thing because I can bolt them later on, etc., etc. So, but on the same token, don't take too much time. Don't be like a slow play person. That's rude. Don't do that. Don't be mean. Don't do that. That's rude. But, don't take too much time. Give yourself enough time to, like, think through your plays, but don't, like, go into time, because it's really, like, sometimes it's unavoidable. We've all been there where we've played against a control deck or we've been the control person, and, like, our rounds tend to go very long. But try not to take up too much time. Okay, the fourth thing is that I feel like some control players are super afraid of is snapping plus serum vision. Some people are like, I can't ever do that because I have to like snap remove something. And here is the deal, is snap serum visioning is fine. It's more than fine. Sometimes you really do need that removal spell, but if you serum visions, you have the likelihood of getting more lands if you're desperate and you need lands, or it helps you get to another removal spell faster. So snap serum, it's okay. You're allowed to do it. It's not the end of the world. You don't always have to think of Snapcaster Mage as a snap plus removal spell. It's okay to do snap serum visions. We've all done it. We all have to do it sometimes. Okay, the next thing is, okay, so I've talked about this a little bit before, is you have to contemplate a lot of times your removal and your counter spells, because a card like Path to Exile, I mean, I talked about how certain cards may look like remove target opponent's creature from the game, but sometimes you path your own Snapcaster Mage so that you can get an extra land, or something like that. So, really figuring out what exactly are you using your removal spells for is very important, because a card, for example, like a counter spell. Counter spells can be used for like artifacts, enchantments, creatures, everything, sorceries, instants, everything, but like a removal spell is only for creatures, so depending on what you're playing against, you need to hold specific removal spells in your hands. You need to be like careful with what removal spells you're playing for, reacting to what your opponent is doing. The next thing is, don't play creatures if you're knowingly gonna board wipe if you don't have to. So say you're like, and I'm not talking about like Snapcaster Mage, I'm talking about like Tassiger or like whatever, a Gurmag Angler or Delver or something like that. don't play those creatures if you know in, like, the next turn you're gonna board wipe. The only reason you do that is if, like, you need a creature to block with or you die. Don't play a bunch of creatures when you're gonna board wipe. That's just stupid. Dumb. It doesn't make sense, so don't do it. Okay. What? I don't even know what that is. I wrote something down and I have no idea what it means, so we're gonna skip that point. Okay, another thing is don't board wipe unless you have to. So because we're control players and or you're gonna be a control player, you have a lot of this removal in your hand, right? And sometimes you get a little bit too excited because you have all this removal and you're like, I need to wipe the board of everything. And, you know, sometimes, you know, in most control builds, you're gonna be running some sort of board wipe, whether it's like Damnation, Wrath of God. I blanked because I'm trying to think of the white blue one, and I can't think of what it is right now. But yeah, don't board wipe unless you like absolutely have to, unless you're gonna die like really soon. Sometimes, you know, you want to make sure your opponent is playing all these creatures, and then when you board wipe, it's like the absolute like be all end all, like you need to board wipe or you're gonna die. Yeah, you know. It's like if you're playing board wipes, you're not going to be playing like 4 of them usually. You're going to be playing like, I don't know, I mean, I guess you technically could be running a couple of board wipes, but, you know, don't play them unless you need to. Okay, I think, in my personal opinion on control decks, every single control deck should definitely run a one-of Quicken. Quicken's, like, amazing. The card's really good. I realized, too, that I'm, like, completely center, so I don't know how I'm going to edit pictures on the screen. We'll make it work. Because Quicken plus sorcery, plus a sorcery is really, really good. My favorite's like Snapcaster, Quicken, and then sorcery. That's like a ton of fun. I really enjoy doing that. So yeah. Definitely try to find that one slot. Also, Quicken draws you a card. So if you like Serum Visions, then you like draw that card from, you know, that whatever's on top from what you scry. It's really good. I love doing that. Okay, the next thing is Snapcaster Mage can attack and block. Don't forget about that. Some people think that Snapcaster Mage, the only purpose of it is just to get something back from the graveyard, to cast a removal spell, to cast a board, like whatever you want to do. Snapcaster Mage actually is a 2/1, and it's a really good blocker. Like, if anything, it is a really good blocker for when you need it to, because you kill Snapcaster Mage and you don't really care. It's kind of done its job, but also at the same time, it can attack. Like, you use it to attack your opponent. Like, don't underestimate 2 points of damage. Like, take your opponent down to, like, that health. Do that. Okay. I talked about that. My handwriting, guys, is so bad. Oh, okay, yeah, like, define what things you can and can't deal with. So, for example, if your opponent plays, like, a 1/1 and you have a Snapcaster Mage, you probably can afford to deal with that 1/1 with your Snapcaster Mage. But then there's some things, like your opponent plays Blood Moon, and you're like, damn, that's really awful. I can't deal with that. The only thing I can deal with that is with this counterspell in my hand. So don't be like, I can deal with that later with my fill-in-blank here. No, you need to deal with that now. You need to set your priorities when you're a control player. Priority number 1 is this. Priority number 2 is this. You know, knowing, like, what things you need to deal with immediately, then what things are like, that 1/1, it's fine, I'm not really worried about it. Maybe in, like, 18 turns it'll kill me, but at this very moment, it's not a top priority. Okay, acknowledge what your opponent is doing. This is really important, and this is also on the same token of if you're playing against a control player. If you're also playing a control deck, or you're playing whatever deck, when you're doing things, when you're like, I play this Siege Rhino, the control player should be like, yep, Siege Rhino is good. You know, don't just keep playing things, because the control player needs to think through their stuff and needs to be like, okay, yeah, that's fine. And also, too, totally, like, fluff it a little bit. Like, say you have nothing in your hands, you know, you gotta play poker a little bit. You gotta be like, Siege Rhino. Yep, sounds good. You know what I mean? You may have, like, that thing on top of your deck. You may not have nothing in your hand. You may have, like, 5 lands in your hand, but play it off as if, like, you have something. Which segues into my last point, which is try to have as many cards in your hand as possible. I am someone who, I love having cards in my hand because I can shuffle my cards, because I'm one of those people who, like, constantly shuffles my cards. just the card flicking. It's just like a habit. If you can afford to have cards in your hand, definitely do that. Even if you have 7 lands in your hand, guys. Seriously, your opponent doesn't know that. Your opponent really does not know that, because you can be saying like, oh yeah, your creature is fine, don't worry about it, and then they swing in, whatever, and your opponent's like, okay, they got nothing for my creature. But, you know, they could assume, hey, maybe they have a board wipe later on, or maybe they Serum Visions and they have a board, like, whatever. So try to have as many cards in your hand. Now, sometimes, like, if you really, really need lands, I mean, play your lands. Like, you know what the top of your curve is with how many lands you ideally want to have on the board. Like, if you want a Snapcaster Wrath of God, you need 6 lands, for example. But, yeah, try to have as many cards in your hand as possible to fool your opponent. Again, play a little bit of poker. I'm not saying you got to be, like, the queen of poker. Like, I'm not saying that. Or the king of poker. But, like, play it off a little bit and be like, yeah, I'm building this wall and I got a lot of cards on my hand and you got no idea what I have. So, hey guys, that was it. That was it for my modern study date where I talk about piloting control deck. Those were a couple of my tips. I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.